Hi, my name is Gerry from Twin Oaks Home Inspection, and today we're going to talk about what a new buyer or a buyer that hasn't been in the market for a while, what to expect when you're hiring a home inspector and what to expect during a home inspection. So today we're on the exterior of the home. That's typically where home inspectors will start the inspection after they review the agreement with you concerning what they do and what they don't do. Then they will start the inspection. Some inspectors do allow the clients to follow them around and ask all the questions you can think of, while other agents and clients are asked to kind of stay low, and if they find anything, if the inspector finds anything, he'll come back and report it so that there can be a full explanation. But that's up to you to decide when you hire an inspector just what you would expect from the inspector, and you should ask those questions before you set the date. So here we are at a typical home. These are some of the older homes have different problems than newer homes, but certainly what the inspector will do is typically start on the outside, looking at the landscaping, looking at water drainage away from the foundation. We want to make sure that Mother Nature helps you and takes care of that. We'll be looking at the exterior siding as well as the window trim. For instance, on this home here, we have a window trim that is requiring a little bit of care. We need some prime and paint here to protect that bare wood type of thing. We're also going to look at vegetation, making sure that it's a sufficient distance away from the home so that it doesn't trap moisture in the home. The other thing that we'll be looking at as inspectors is the condition of the roof shingles, any areas of concern. We'll be looking hopefully at the age of the roof and explain to you the type of roof that it is. And although we can't necessarily give the exact time that it needs to be replaced, we can give you a general idea whether it's less than 5 years or greater than 15 years. So those are the types of things that we'll be looking on the exterior. We'll be also looking at the foundation for any cracks or any settlement, also the condition of decks and porches, and pretty much anything that you can see visually on the exterior of the home will be on our checklist to make sure that we give you some advice or give you at least the condition that it's in today and whether it requires any immediate repair. In the older homes, there's also going to be the consideration for lead paint and asbestos. So anything prior to 1978 would be a candidate to look for those types of things. And the inspector should be able to explain to you the concerns associated with that. But there's also plenty of information on the New Hampshire DES site that will explain those dangers or those precautions and how you can deal with it if you come across those particular problems. Anything after 1978, those issues shouldn't be a concern to you. So with that, I think we will head inside and give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect on the inside of the house for an inspection. There's a lot more detail required there, and I'll give you also an idea of how long a typical inspection should take. So with that, let's go inside. All right, so now we're in the interior of the home. And after, again, any particular questions that you have on the exteriors, the inspector will now come into the interior, and it's a very different style of inspection now. We have a lot more items to look at. We're going to be starting typically in the kitchen. The inspector should try out all of the appliances that are available that day, including the stove and oven, microwave, the hood, trying out the sink, making sure the traps work properly. If there's a disposal, they'll be trying all of those items. They'll also be looking at the conditions of the floor, the ceilings and the walls in all of the rooms. The typical inspection by state standard would be to make sure that there's at least one outlet checked in each room to make sure that the outlet is properly wired and working. They'll determine whether there's a ground, and all of this is technical stuff, but the inspector can explain that to you during the inspection. They're going to be checking out at least one window in every room, making sure that it operates properly and that it's in good condition. They should also be looking at if it's a newer window, whether there's fog or moisture trapped between the two panes of glass in the newer windows. So all of these things will be explained by an inspector as they see things. So then they should go into every room. They should be looking at the condition of that room, and again, anything that's visual. So if there are things on the wall, if there's a lot of curtains, inspectors are not expected, and by state standards really can't move things. So we do have to take a look, and we do have some limitations on what's visible during the inspection. But after they go through all of that, we're going to be actually going up into the attic as well. So there should be an access to the attic. The inspectors will be looking at the attic for roof structure, making sure that there's no cracks in the rafters or anything of that nature, that it's secure. They'll look at the condition of the chimney if there is one. They'll also be paying close attention to the amount of insulation that's in the attic. That's very important for energy efficiency and comfort in the home. Also going to be looking for any ventilation issues and any fungal material, mold or anything else that may develop in the attic. So that all indicates that there may be moisture issues, there may be stains, there may be a whole lot of things that go on in the attic that the inspector should be able to report to you on, because typically people don't visit their attics and it's not information that is readily available even to the owner. So after that, they will be taking a trip down to the basement or into the garage as well. And we're going to go down there now and we're going to take a look at a couple of the items, and I'll explain a little bit more, because that's the fun part of the inspection, is down in the basement where all the toys are. So we'll be going down there, and see you in a minute. Alright, so here we are in the basement. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things down here. The type of foundation. In older homes, you're going to find that there's granite block and there's brick and there's fieldstone as types of foundation. In the newer homes, since World War II and that type of thing, you're going to see that there's either a block or a poured concrete foundation. And again, the inspector should be able to explain that to you, but what they're going to be looking for is any cracks or decay or damage to that foundation that could cause the structure to shift or to cause damage to the structure. Also going to be looking for water infiltration. A lot of basements in New Hampshire have water that enters into the basement, and it can cause a lot of issues. High humidity can cause rot in some of the structure for the floor and for the rim joists around the building. So we're going to be looking for all of those types of things to give you some idea of the condition of the structure itself and how stable it is and how sturdy it is going forward. We're also going to be looking for any prior repairs, that type of thing. In all of the inspections, you're going to find that inspectors are generalists, so if we see anything beyond our expertise or experience or knowledge, we're going to refer you to other professionals as well. So it may be foundation professionals, it may be carpenters or builders, to provide more evaluation and more advice to you if we do find something that, again, is of serious nature. It's also a good idea to get estimates from contractors, or you can also go on the web in some situations to get estimates of repairs or things that will be needed, not necessarily immediately, but maybe in the next 4 or 5 years as an improvement. And the reason that we advise that is that will give you a general idea of what to budget for and what to expect and the cost of maintaining your home going down the road. So it's not important necessarily to understand whether it's $1,000 or $1,500. It's more important to understand whether it's $1,000 or $10,000. So that's the idea that you need at least to understand before you get at the closing and get surprised a year later that you have a major expense coming to you. So in city homes, you're not going to have a problem with wells. It's going to be city water, typically in city sewer. However, in some situations, the sewer pipe to the main street, if it's really old and there's a lot of trees or vegetation on the property, you may want to get that looked at by a septic company. They can run a camera down that sewer line to make sure that trees and roots haven't gone in to cause an issue with that system. The country dwellings will have typically a private well. And we do recommend that you have water testing, and there's various things that go on, but water testing done, most inspectors will be able to take that sample for you and bring it to the lab, and they can provide you with the fees that they charge for that. Septic inspection is the same thing in the country homes. Your suburban homes are going to have their own septic system, and there are septic inspectors out there that you can hire at a fair fee to come and inspect the tank as well as the field and its condition. These are major ticket items, so it's important to do this prior to your closing so you get a better understanding of what the full cost of the home purchase will be. So here we have a heating system. This is a pretty elegant system. This is a very large home. It's got a lot of zones to it and so forth. But the inspector should check that out. They should be able to give you the general time that that unit was manufactured. We can't tell you the day that it was installed, obviously. We typically don't have that information. But boilers, if they're of a reasonable quality in name, will typically last around 28 to 32 years. Some last more, some last less. But they do require maintenance. So again, that's something that in your budgeting process you do need to consider. It costs about $180 to $200 a year to maintain an oil burner, for instance. Gas units are much less and you don't have to do it quite as often. But the inspector should be checking that out, looking for anything that looks like it's going to cause the unit to fail and it's going to cost you money down the road. Same thing with a hot water system. You should have a hot water tank there. It may be off the boiler or it may be a self-contained unit. Again, that has a serial number on it and the inspector should be able to tell you how old those are. There's a reason why typical electric hot water tanks are only warranted for 6 to 8 years, and it's because that's what the manufacturer expects the life of that unit to be. The typical electrical hot water tank will last anywhere from 11 to 13 years. Some last longer, some less. Again, it depends on the quality of the water, especially if it's coming from a well. So with that, there's one other thing I did want to show you while we're down here, and that's the electrical entrance. So we're going to move over here. And what the inspector will do here is, this is where the electricity comes into the home, and there's breakers here. There may be a fuse panel here where you see the old fuses that you can screw in. We do recommend that you upgrade to breakers by a professional electrician, licensed electrician, but that again is something that an inspector will review with you if that condition is the case. The inspector should actually remove this panel, just take off the screws and take a look at the wiring that's going on behind it, ensuring that it is properly wired as either a main panel or a sub panel. And again, an inspector can explain that all to you after they see what's there, and as you ask questions as you're following the inspector, you should be able to do that. So we're talking about various things. One of the things that we did not talk about is, and also while the inspector is in the basement, by the way, they will be looking at the roof structure, they'll be looking at the plumbing, they'll be looking at the heating system itself and the distribution system. If there's an air conditioner in the home that is not window type, the inspector should test that if weather permits. Once the air temperature on the exterior outside gets below 65, it's not recommended to test air conditioning systems and the condensers because it could do damage to the unit itself. So inspectors, start looking at air conditioning systems typically in the month of May through the end of September or October, but during the winter months we won't be testing those systems. So in choosing an inspector, there's a few things that I would suggest to you that you consider. You want to not only understand what the price is, lower price doesn't mean that you're getting the same product. There's a few other things that as a consumer you want to make sure that you ask the inspector before you hire them. Their experience certainly does play a part. Inspectors that have been in the business for 10 or 15 years have seen a lot more than that new inspector that's only been in the business for a year and a half or 2 years. It's not to say that the inspector with only 2 years experience isn't a qualified inspector. They must meet all of the state standards and pass all of the tests. It's just that sometimes they don't see things and can't explain things in the same way that an experienced inspector may do that. But you also want to understand their ability to go into attics. Some inspectors have a difficult time gaining access into the small portals, openings that we have in attics. Some inspectors do not go up on a roof. Some inspectors will only look from the ground, and in some cases that's the only way that you're going to be able to inspect some of these roofs. But those are questions that you should be asking as you hire an inspector. Some inspectors will also do septic, or they will be able to make arrangements for a septic company to be there. That's for your convenience. They also will do radon air testing. They will do water testing. and there's various types of water testing that you can ask for. If you have an FHA or VA loan, there will be a need for a pest inspection. That's the NPMA 33 form. Some inspectors don't do those, so again, that's something that you want to ask them prior to hiring them. And overall, that's something that all of the inspectors need to do, is to pay attention to the standards. Those are available on the website at the New Hampshire Board of Licensing. And you can also ask your inspector. Most inspectors have them on their website as well. I include all of the standards at the end of my report. And speaking of reports, that's the last thing that you may want to ask an inspector, or maybe even the first thing you want to ask an inspector, is what type of report do they do? There are various types. There's different, the earlier versions are handwritten, and it's a checkoff list. It may be 15 or 16 pages long. It does cover all of the major components of an inspection, but it's either going to tell you that it's serviceable or it's not, with not much explanation. If there's something serious, the inspector may have to handwrite some defect in there, and again, it's a question of how well they do handwriting and whether it's legible or not. That takes a lot more time, but the advantage to that is that you do see the report at the end of the inspection. You may have to wait an hour or an hour and a half for that report to be created, but you would see a report at the end of the inspection. That does extend the average inspection. So what is an average inspection? An average inspection takes about 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on how many problems there are, the size of the home, how many questions you may have, how many relatives have joined you during the inspection and may have a lot more questions. So expect that time. The other report that is known by most of the inspectors now is a computerized generated report. They will go back to their office after the inspection and they will input all of the information. But the importance of this one, or the advantage of this one, is that it includes pictures with the defects shown, with an explanation provided by the inspector. It's all in a PDF format, usually around 50 pages long, so I don't recommend that you print it out before you read it, but that's up to you. And those are much more inclusive and provide you a lot more detailed information, because after all, you've just been through the house for 2 hours and you're not going to remember that defect that the inspector was talking about early on in the inspection. So it gives you a general idea, and it also gives you the opportunity to price out some of these things and talk over with your agent as to whether that's a negotiable item or something that you should be more concerned about, or just dealing with the owner, whether there's any other arrangements that can be made. So that report should be provided to you within 24 hours. That's again something that some inspectors do guarantee within 48 hours, but you know, as an inspector, for me, I guarantee it the same day, simply because I can't continually postpone reports when I have other inspections coming up. So those are the types of things that I would suggest you think about when you're hiring an inspector. And again, price is not the sole criteria. It should be whether you think that you can get along with this individual for 2 hours, and whether they're going to be friendly in answering all of your questions, because it's you that's purchasing the home and it's your time. So that should be a consideration that the inspector should be giving to you. So with that, I think we've finished on the inside. We've talked about the report. We've talked about some other testing, some other companies that can come in to help you during the inspection. All of this does cost money, but hopefully it's going to be beneficial to you in the end so that you make the correct decision. And again, all of this information should be discussed with your agent after you see the report, and then a lot more questions can be provided. Myself and many other inspectors offer the service that as a buyer, you can certainly contact us later on, even months later after the fact, and ask questions about the home or about the inspection, and we're more than happy to help you out. So with that, I think we are done at this segment. Thank you.